Well, welcome everybody. Um, this meeting is going to be recorded and it's going to be posted to the OATS website and YouTube channel for the benefit of those who can't make it today. We're the Organic Advisor Call Series, and I'm going to be your facilitator. My name is Nate Powell-Palm, and I'm the training specialist for OATS. This series is brought to you by the Organic Agronomy Training Service, OATS, and this is our 11th episode. So please visit the OATS website to view the call schedule and the list of topics that we've talked about and that we're going to talk about. If you haven't done so already, I'd highly recommend signing up for the Organic Advisors listserv, which I think a lot of you already are on. We're going to have and already have had some great discussion about all things organics, and especially relevant to organic farmers and organic advisors. So I'm going to drop the link to the listserv right here, and you can sign up if you're interested. And that is pretty much it for housekeeping. So let's get started with this conversation. I'm really excited. My guest today is Charlotte Vallaeys, who's the Natural and Organic Associate Expert at General Mills. And Charlotte is a organic veteran. She has been in the industry a really long time, has played a lot of crucial roles to helping our industry develop, and is now with General Mills. And so, Charlotte, would you kick us off with just a little bit of background on how you got into organics, your experience in the industry, and what your current role entails at General Mills?
Sure. Yeah. First, I would just want to say thank you for inviting me to this call, and hi everybody. Thanks for joining. Yeah. So I started in the organic industry. I really see the organic industry as part of a larger organic community, and so started in the organic community really in graduate school. My second master's degree was at Tufts in the Agriculture, Food, and Environment program, where Kathleen Merrigan was the director of that program, and she was my academic advisor. And I think most of you know Kathleen Merrigan. She wrote the Organic Foods Production Act in the late, or as a staffer for Patrick Leahy. And so that's really where for me, it kind of clicked that organic really is the way to move the food system forward as a more sustainable alternative to non-organic. And before that, I was my first master's degree is from Harvard, where I was actually studying theological studies and philosophy, which is where I met Frederick Kirschman. So, and that was really a pivotal moment for me, where Fred, again, I'm assuming, most of you know Fred, but a philosopher and organic farmer. And that's where I really made that connection between, ethics, kind of, what's the right thing to do, and organic farming, and how that really is a solution. And then I went to Tufts for that master's degree in science and policy. And then I worked in various nonprofits, first with the Cornucopia Institute for 7 years, and then with Consumers Union. And Consumers Union is the largest and oldest public interest advocacy organization in the United States. I ended up working on lots of different projects for them, rating food labels, but also their investigative reporting, and always about food system sustainability issues. And what struck me was that organic always came out as a kind of the solution that we could offer consumers, right? Because we were really at Consumers Union advocating for consumers, talking to consumers with our Consumer Reports magazine. And time and again, it was organic. Organic was the solution. We worked on antibiotics in livestock. That was one of our big issues that we worked on. We worked on GMOs. We worked on additives in foods that have health concerns. We worked on sewage sludge. And every time, organic is what we could tell consumers was the label to look for when they were shopping for food and looking for that better alternative. So Yeah, and then I went back to Tufts for a PhD and then ended up at General Mills 2 years ago as their organic expert.
And we are stoked you're in that role, because I think that there's a lot of mission folks at these large companies who turn over or they're new to organic when they're put into that position. And so it's exciting to have someone with your breadth of experience bringing that organic voice.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your role in General Mills and what sort of things you work on and advocate for?
Yeah, so I absolutely love this role. I mean, in a nutshell, I get to advocate for organic all day long, both within the company and outside of it. So I work with the organic brands and also at the corporate sustainability level. I work very closely with them. And so, yeah, I'll give some examples. I worked on, and I'm still working on the sustainability strategy for the organic brand. So that's really important, is that a big company with a commitment to regenerative agriculture, for example, that we make sure that for the organic brands, our sustainability strategy and advancing kind of the corporate goals, that it's done in a way that makes sense for organic, not just for this community that we're all part of, for the farmers, also for the consumers, right? So the sustainability strategy for the organic brands is going to look a little bit different in how it's implemented from, say, the corporate sustainability goals. So I guess what I'm saying is same goal, but maybe approach it and implement it in a way that really works for organic. So that's internal. And then with the corporate sustainability, just making sure that organic is recognized. And then externally, again, I'll give an example. We're part of the Organic Trade Association. And so advocating for organic with the Organic Trade Association. And a recent example is a lot of major retailers are pushing or are implementing their own sustainability strategies, and they are not necessarily all recognizing that the organic label is actually a ready to go, ready-made sustainability solution. And so the Organic Trade Association put together a task force to pull together the science and explain organic and the ways that it is already meeting these sustainability goals, and then put together a communications toolkit. So I was part of that task force, and then we actually have been advocating with retailers, really big retailers like Walmart. And that's, again, where General Mills can play this really important role, right? Because if General Mills comes to Walmart and says, look, organic is, should be counted in for them, it's Built for Better. That's the name of their kind of sustainability program. That's huge to have General Mills come to Walmart and advocate for organic in that way. So that's just one example of what advocating for organic externally looks like for my role.
I love it. You gave me a lot of little threads to chase here now. So I want to jump back to one thing you said earlier, with organic and regenerative being part of this effort with General Mills. How does General Mills think about and define regenerative, and how do you guys intersect these two spaces?
Yes, I love that question, Nate, because whenever we say the word regenerative, we have to define it, right? That's one of the things that I've learned in the last 2 years in this job is there's such a wide spectrum in terms of how people are thinking about the word regenerative. Even last week, we were, right, Nate, we were at Expo West, and so, yes. Yep, I mean, tens of thousands of people who all work in this industry gathered in one place, and I was in the booth, and the first two people who came up and really had a question about regenerative, I made the mistake of not asking them at the start of our conversation, what is your definition of regenerative? And the conversation just gets confusing. We're like talking past each other. And the first person, their definition of regenerative was, it has to be organic first. Like, don't call yourself regenerative unless you have organic certification. And then you really need to have certification for regenerative. And that means regenerative organic certified. So that was the first person's definition. The second person who came essentially told me, this is hard to hear, but said organic is meaningless. I don't care about organic. I'm looking for regenerative. I want regenerative. And so then I asked, well, what is your definition of regenerative if organic is meaningless? And she said, well, no till. And I said, so no till ever? Never, ever till? And I knew this person, there was no arguing with this person. She had her mind made up. And she said, well, I mean, maybe sometimes, clearly didn't know what she was talking about, but have really gotten this notion that regenerative equals no till, right? So it's this really wide spectrum out there in terms of how people are defining regenerative agriculture. And yeah, lots and lots of confusion. So for General Mills, right? How do we see the intersection of organic and regenerative? First, we define regenerative agriculture as a holistic approach to farming and ranching that seeks ecosystem, now I'm totally blanking on, seeks positive outcomes in ecosystems and community resilience. So it's very aspirational. It's something we seek, it's holistic. And then of course, as we all know, that's actually a pretty good definition for organic, right? Organic has not just been seeking these same things, but we have now hundreds, and that's not an exaggeration, there are hundreds of studies in the peer-reviewed scientific literature that have looked at organic compared to non-organic systems in outcomes, including soil health, water quality, biodiversity, how it impacts communities, farmers, economics, a farm worker, exposure to pesticides, and the list goes on and on and on. And we know that organic that doesn't just seek those outcomes, we have evidence supporting those outcomes from organic. So that's why for General Mills, organic is one way that, growing organic is one way to advance regenerative agriculture. And we do say organic is regenerative. And it's also not the only way, right? So that's maybe where we differ from, say, people who really seek regenerative organic certified, for example, as the way to be regenerative. We do differ there in that for the conventional side of the business, if farmers are, if advancing regenerative and talking about it as regenerative agriculture is how we get farmers onto that journey to start making those changes on their farm, even though it may be not enough for some people, but if they start planting cover crops, right, that's positive, that's a step in the right direction. And we do recognize that as positive and part of advancing regenerative agriculture as well.
Love that. And I've always thought about, this being a really big tent that we can have. There should be no antipathy between organic and regenerative, but rather seeing regenerative as someone on that almost transitional path, adding piecemeal practices one at a time. So love to hear that General Mills is thinking about it as a big tent as well, but seeing the value of organic.
Right.
When we jump back
also,
to,
I think what we're really trying to, just in terms of messaging in the industry, for example, at places like Expo, is to get away from that oppositional, just, the people who see organic and regenerative as oppositional. And again, I mean, when I first heard about that, that was such a shock to me, that that because of this tillage issue, that some people actually saw the two as not just different, but actually working, oppositional, that because organic
Mhm.
farmers till, that they could never be considered regenerative. And so really, we're working on doing whatever we can to kind of get people away from that way of thinking. I don't know how we're going to do it, because it's definitely out there, that kind of messaging, and which is really sad, I think, to see.
And a
But it's
huge
the
missed
reality.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we work towards, again, the world's on fire, folks. We've got to all be pulling in the same direction. Um, could you talk a little bit about the brands? When I think of General Mills and organic, Annie's comes to mind, but that's not the only natural and organic brand in the family, as it were. Could you talk a little about what organic brands are in General Mills and sort of how they interact and what their concerns are?
Yeah. So Annie's is our biggest. It's not 100% organic brand, because we have mac and cheese that's made with organic wheat. So we do source only organic wheat for Annie's. Um, and but there's some made with organic mac and cheese. But still, in terms of organic volume that we purchase, Annie's is by far the largest. And then we also have Cascadian Farm, which is a 100% organic brand. Lots of cereal, so that's kind of the organic option for shoppers when they're buying cereal. It also, Cascadian Farm also has frozen fruits and frozen vegetables, granola bars, things like that. And then Muir Glen is another big one. That's organic tomatoes, canned tomatoes. And now it's not just tomatoes, but it's salsa and chili starters. So anything with tomatoes, we're really innovating, trying to get more of those tomatoes out to consumers in convenient ways. And then we also have Immaculate Baking, which is a very small brand, but that's also all organic. The organic version for kind of the ready, what do they call it? Like pie dough that's ready to use for consumers.
Sure. Mhm.
And then a lot of let's see, some of the soups as well are now have organic versions, like Progresso. There are some organic SKUs that that are now available. So again, getting that organic alternative out to consumers in ways that they, for brands that they already know and trust in the conventional space. So we're doing that as well. And then some of the other natural brands but they're not organic, like Lara Bar and Epic are
Mhm.
also part of General Mills.
So General Mills is really, I mean, they've got a big buying presence in the organic, at least the organic wheat space, and as well as these other organic ingredients. And could you speak a little bit to, how does General Mills see the next 5 years, the next 10 years, as they grow their organic and natural brands? I, as a farmer, love to hear of the CPGs and those end companies investing in organic, because I know that's in tandem a good investment for me to keep growing my farm, to become a better farmer, and to hopefully convince my neighbors to go organic as well, to help meet those demands. Could you speak a little bit about what the growth hopes or plans are for Annie's, especially, and how General Mills sees the organic space as a center of growth in the greater company?
Yeah, so growing our business is growing organic, right? And we are fully committed to organic as the path forward. So if the Annie's brand, for example, and the growth and the success of the Annie's brand is any indication for what's to come, what's in the future, I think absolutely we'll continue to see that growth. We'll continue to see organic, or consumers really reaching for organic and looking for that label. And so, yeah, I mean, in terms of, from the farmer perspective, I suppose if, if there's any question about whether markets for, say, organic wheat are going to be there and continue to grow from the Annie's perspective, absolutely. We're just seeing, again, at Expo, they shared kind of the latest data for the organic industry as a whole, and it continues to, the growth rates continue to be double or higher conventional growth rates. Organic, it continues to be what consumers know and trust, even with all of these other labels out there. That organic label is, for whatever reason, something that consumers, it's their heuristic, meaning like it's that one image that they look for on a package of food that signals to them, yeah, this is better for me, for my kids, for my family. And we can talk a little bit later about how we're trying to make that, it's also good for the planet. We're trying to really work on that message. But so yeah, I mean, General Mills, and we put this in our sustainability strategy because it's something not to be taken for granted, right? Like, to have that commitment to organic, but that is absolutely in our strategy, not just our sustainability strategy, but really the strategy for these brands is to remain committed to organic. Yeah, and the OTA has this wheel of sustainability, and it's good for people, good for planet, good for business. And I think that good for business part is really important as well. Like, right, organic is good for business. It's something consumers trust and look for. And then, yeah, in terms of how we're investing in organic, there's a couple of other things I do want to talk about, because obviously providing that market for farmers is key, and we know that, we recognize that, and we also recognize that there's more that we can do. We support technical assistance in oats, right? The Organic Agronomy Training Service. We are a major financial sponsor of oats, and we do see that technical assistance for farmers as really critical. So we also announced a partnership last week to work with, and I see Leah is on the call. So we announced a partnership with Rodale and with the Rodale consultants to, essentially what it looks like for farmers if a farmer in our supply chain is interested in that one-on-one Rodale consulting, it's available to them for free because General Mills is subsidizing that. So again, it's just a way for General Mills to do our part. I know there's lots of efforts out there to get more of that technical assistance coaching, one-on-one coaching for farmers out there, and so this is one way that General Mills is contributing to that as well. And I see a question, which is a great question, specifically for farmers working with General Mills. If a farmer is interested in transitioning to organic, which is where Rodale really can play a huge part, and they're not yet working with General Mills, yes, I mean, please encourage that farmer to sign up for the program, because we're not necessarily saying you have to sell your crops to General Mills. We really see this as part of kind of a larger effort to get more farmers to organic, and then, but they should be in the region where we source our ingredients, like Montana for wheat, for example, California for tomatoes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for snagging that question. And I would encourage anyone else, please put your questions in the question box or raise your hand and we can hear them live. This is really an exciting opportunity to talk about this demand side of our industry. So Charlotte, speaking about demand, and this is, sort of organic writ large, how do you see us becoming being clearer about messaging and growing that demand? I think we talk about 6 or 7% of the food market as being incredible, given where we started for organic, but I really am like looking at 50%. How do we really start driving that adoption by consumers? And what do we need to be thinking about? We all have conversations every day with our fellow farmers, with other consumers. And I think that the clarity of our own articulation of what is organic, what are the planetary benefits of organic, and why should we buy organic, is something that we haven't really nailed down as well as we should, to be able to make it just a one-stop. Well, I think you use the term almost like oven ready, an oven ready solution to all of your personal health requirements when you're trying to buy food, but also your environmental concerns. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I see it as really hopeful for the future, in that so many younger consumers are aware of the connection between their food choices and that larger, not just for me benefit, but the for us benefit, the planetary benefit. The challenge, I think, for the industry is to make sure that we are totally on top of that messaging, and making that connection for consumers, that organic is that solution if they're in, say, they can, regardless of where they shop, right? And so just a couple of things. First, consumer survey data do show consistently that that the numbers of especially younger shoppers who are aware and concerned about, say, climate and these bigger planetary health crises is growing. What we're not seeing necessarily is the connection between that concern and organic. And so that's where the opportunity lies, right? Is like, let's close that gap, right? If 70% of consumers are saying that they want, with their food choices, do something that benefits the planet, and only 30% consistently buy organic, there's a real gap there. And that's where it's really important to have that consistent message, so that the entire industry kind of works together on getting that message out to those consumers. And what's challenging is organic means so many things. It's almost too good to be true in some ways for a lot of people, right? It's like, oh, what you mean, like no antibiotics, no growth hormones, no this, no that, and your list goes on. It's, how could that possibly be true? And they start kind of questioning, like, oh, well, last week it was no GMOs and now it's no antibiotics. It's like organic does everything. And so let's get that message to consumers that yes, it is all those things, right? And it is because it is a holistic system. It's not just a checklist. It is really, a holistic way of farming that was captured in federal law and federal regulations. I mean, it's so hard to wrap your head around sometimes. And I think that's why it has been so hard to get that message out to a lot of consumers, and why there has been this tendency to reduce it down to, okay, let's just focus on GMOs, right? And then the whole organic industry kind of focused on organic is non-GMO for a couple of years. And so rather than being reactive and saying, well, what's the issue of the day today? Oh, it's regenerative, it's climate. Let's really just not always react, but just go out there with a consistent message of everything that organic does stand for, and how it is kind of this deeper, it is almost a philosophy, right? A philosophy that was captured in federal law and federal standards. And so we're working with Organic Voices, which is an industry group. It was started by 7 brands in 2012 that came together to get consumer messaging in a consistent way out to consumers. And today it's more than 100 brands are part of it. And that's the next phase. And the next phase of their campaign is going to be focused on all of the things that organic stands for, not just one, and doing it in a way that makes people feel good, like TikTok videos, Instagram, like go where people are, especially younger people, and really make them feel good. Don't scare them about the alternative. Make them feel good about what organic is. And then with a lot of different messages, but that all are tied together kind of with this common theme of getting the message across of the many things that organic does and make people feel good about it.
Love that. Thinking about, how we get that message across, I think we've talked a lot about, especially since the word regenerative became more common. We've talked a lot about the planetary implications for organic, but one question I wanted to ask you was, I think we have a unique market cornered on the better for you part of food, that we are the only truly clean label out there, and not just on the farm for pesticides and herbicides, but all the way through processing. And I think that part is never really discussed. When we talk about constantly what we do on the farm, but we never talk about the fact that preservatives and processing agents and all of these other pieces are not in your food. Do you think we should be doubling down or trying to lean in more to that better for you, purely from a clean label point of view?
Yeah, and this is what's tough, right? Is like organic does so many things. Which ones do you pick? Which ones do you double down on? And the Organic Voices, the campaign that they did a couple of years ago that was really, really successful was Skip the Chemicals, right? Yeah. And it was this list of 700 chemicals that are not allowed in organic, that could be, you just never know, could be in your conventional non-organic food. And that was really successful. And I think
the world's most skippable
Sorry, that was me. I was just grabbing a link to it to drop it for everybody. Please go on.
Oh yeah. You should definitely watch it. It was good. And I think very successful because even if consumers don't really understand what those chemicals are, even where they're used or how they're used, they really do see organic as the better for me, better for my kids, especially for Annie's, which is a brand for kids, for busy parents, that it's better for my kids because it doesn't have all of those additives and chemicals used in farming. It really it has been very successful, and I think we should not walk away from that, absolutely, because that is actually how you really convince shoppers, right? That's the other thing, right? All of that consumer survey data shows that it's price, convenience, and taste. That's what consumers are looking for, the vast majority. Of course, you have like the hardcore organic consumers who will pay anything and to get organic. It doesn't matter how it tastes, they're going to eat it. But really, the vast majority of consumers are looking for price, convenience, and taste. And so, totally forgot where I was going with that.
All good. Well, we have a question in the question box for you. So we, I know you're not on the sourcing side, so answer this in whatever capacity you can. But organic has always done things a little bit different, and that comes even down to how we organize and buy and sell and form contracts with companies and with buyers and offtake buyers. in the face of climate change, this is a question from Doug Crabtree. In the face of climate change, do you see any innovative mechanisms, any innovative tools that buyers have for trying to help farmers weather the coming, real uncertainty that climate change is bringing? Do you see us buying and selling and kind of changing that mode of commerce at all as part of the organic journey to trying to stabilize organic growing communities and just rural communities in general?
Meaning more stable contracts for
More stable
farmers?
contracts, longer term, anything, that kind of falls in that bucket of, instead of selling the grain only after you've grown it or working on 1-year contracts, trying to partner for longer term opportunities to provide more stability to farmers.
And Doug, I see you came off mute. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Well, I think a couple important elements of this are support for broader rotations and more diversity. It's pretty easy to sell wheat here. There's lots of options for that, but we need to grow more than wheat. And across the Midwest, they need to grow more than corn and soybeans. And so how can companies like yours help us market the entire rotation? That's one element. And the other is just this concept of a basic farm income that we can count on every year, so we know we can live to see another day, so to speak, regardless of annual production. How do we stabilize that income? Not only for the existing farms, but we have to do that if we're going to encourage more agrarians to join the effort. So I know that's a big can of worms, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I'll start with the rotational crops question. So we actually did put in our sustainability strategy to look at ways to buy more diverse crops, because we completely recognize that advancing regenerative agriculture, we can all agree that regenerative, like one of the principles of regenerative is having more diverse crop rotations and more diversity. And so in organic, that has always been part of a well-functioning organic farm is having that crop diversity, crop rotations. And so we recognize that we have to reflect that in the products that we make, right? That it doesn't make sense to say to the farmers, well, we want you to be more diverse, and then we keep on selling just wheat in our products. And so reflecting that diversity back into our product formulations is one of the things that that we are working on. So our R&D team is actually currently looking at different ways to increase the use of, and we have a list of rotational crops that they're looking at. And especially in Cascadian Farm, that's a bit of an easier lift. So we already have, for example, buckwheat, we have pea protein and some of those Cascadian Farm products. And we're looking at ways to make that happen for Annie's as well. And we had a pea protein mac and cheese, which I know Nate and Doug, you know about that because you were the amazing farmers who grew those crops that was really featured on the box of mac and cheese. What we're looking at now is actually getting those crops at a lower percentage, but in more of the products. So we're calling it the little and a lot approach. It's just a way to provide more of that stability moving forward. So if, because with those, what we call the hero SKUs, they're the boxes that are sold at Whole Foods, and it's consumers like me who say, ooh, it has the word good for the planet on the box, I'm going to buy that, right? But we really want to reach more consumers, the ones who don't necessarily look for that, and just kind of, I hate to use the word sneak it in, but it is just like, let's get it in more of those products really as the right thing to do, rather than the way to get consumers to buy buy those products. And of course, we would still talk about it, back of pack website, but it's not necessarily like on the front. This mac and cheese is all about this crop, and one of the crops that we have is kernza, the long-rooted perennial, and that's part of the strategy we're looking at of getting more of these crops as smaller percentages. We're looking at that for kernza as well, because we've just heard from farmers that they want to grow kernza, and of course they need a market for that. And we have the Cascadian Farm Kernza cereal, which is doing great, by the way. It's at Whole Foods, and it's going to be at more retailers starting in April. So we are expanding that, and we're also thinking, if we could have like 2% kernza in a product that used to be 100% wheat, that would be a great way to grow that demand for kernza. So that's the rotational crops answer. That was kind of the easy one. The second one is, I think, the harder one. Yeah, I mean, totally agree that, stabilizing income, just guaranteeing that income for farmers is really critical. How General Mills is going to make that happen, I'm not in sourcing, so yeah, I don't know, but that's definitely something that I can bring back to the team and think about, putting that in our sustainability strategy and working with the sourcing team, seeing how we can make that happen. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Doug. We've got a couple of questions that sort of have a theme, and that is that we need more, building on Doug's question, more diversity in our rotations and need more diverse offtake options. As farmers realize through their own experimentation and their own agronomy on their farms, which crops are really doing good things for their rotations, what do you envision as like a communication mechanism to let companies like General Mills know what those new and innovative crops are and what they should be trying to take to their R&D team to try to incorporate, be it rye or millet or these other crops that are not traditional in the milling space, but have cool benefits?
Yeah, so the question is how to get that across to, say, a company like General Mills, like.
Yeah, like we can't all be calling General Mills saying buy rye or buy millet, but what as General Mills looks to innovate in its R&D department for different ingredients, what are some channels to try to describe good impactful crops to General Mills to think about?
I mean, I think this is partly why engaging with farmers, like what I'm doing right now, hearing directly from farmers and advisors who work closely with farmers is really important, because now I'm sure you will give everybody my email address, reach out and just know that I am here, we are here, we want to hear from you. We totally understand that this is, like I said earlier, we're part of a community and we can't do this without farmers. And so, yeah, we definitely want to hear from you. I know that's maybe not an official way to get it, to get that information.
No, that's very helpful. Yeah.
But, yeah, because we are, like I said, I mean, we have our list of crops, and millet is on there. And we are looking at some very exciting uses for millet that I can't share publicly yet, but we really do have an amazing team of R&D scientists and some really smart marketers who, once they hear which crops are important for farmers and important in those rotations, then they can really kind of, do their work in figuring out how to get it into products and how to get it into the market for consumers. So yeah, I mean, if there are if there are other crops, please do send them my way. And because I'm sure we're missing some.
Cool. Yes. Well, you can bet your bottom dollar that those will be coming into your inbox.
Right.
We had a question a little bit ago from Hannah, and she was asking a question I'm really interested in myself. With organic and these more novel crops, shorter supply chains, I think, inevitably mean more value back to the farmer. The fewer middlemen and transfers we have to do just means that there's fewer cooks in the kitchen, as it were. Her question was if General Mills is looking to invest in any regional infrastructure for organic processing and post-harvest production and storage.
Well, I know that we, yeah, I don't know if that's really something on in our immediate plans. I know that we've invested, for example, in Kernza processing, and in fact, this is before I joined General Mills, but this is my understanding, is that really getting Kernza into a final product and the processing that was necessary for that, because it is different from wheat, that General Mills really invested heavily in getting that processing, those processing facilities. In terms of what that looks like in the future, I don't know. I mean, my understanding is that especially for wheat, that seems to all be running pretty smoothly on our end. I don't know if it's not on the farmer's end, definitely let me know, but the market is there, and
we can have a conversation about that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's a greater, a greater question of how can farmers, I love the conversation of how can farmers start investing in things other than just crop production. Groups of farmers getting together to buy elevators or rail spurs or things to make it so that it's easier for General Mills and companies writ large, just organic buyers overall, easier to get access to those goods. I think there's oftentimes that question of it's just too far away, trucking's too expensive to access a lot of organic growers around the whole country. And so realize, again, you're not in sourcing, so we won't hold you to it. But as a greater conversation for how do we think about improving infrastructure overall, would love to continue that thread.
Yeah.
At a later date, and if there's anybody else that I think we could be happy to put together some farmers I know farmers would be eager to hear how we could be more cohesive in our logistics.
Yeah.
When we look to other points of growth in organic, what do you see as some of the messaging as well as the communication lines between organic farmers and organic brand owners and developers? It seems like going to Expo West last week, there's just so much daylight between folks on the ground working hard to grow and maintain this supply of grains, but also other goods, and how brands talk, especially small brands, new brands, how they talk about where they should be innovating, like their idea of what is innovative, I think would strike a farmer as surprising. And so when you're looking at how we can close that gap of communication between folks on the ground doing the actual farming and folks telling the story about farming, any thoughts there for how farmers can either both get their own story better out there for what they're doing and why it's innovative, but also just to get closer to brands so that we have more clear, coherent messaging?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that it's just what I've noticed is, farmers, I don't want to speak for farmers, but, farmers want to farm, right? I've heard that a couple of times from farmers really looking for being able to do what they're they're good at, which is growing the food and really looking to brands doing what they're good at, which is telling the story, marketing it to consumers, and not necessarily wanting to have to tell that story themselves. And, I'm sure there's plenty of farmers who do want to do that. And so I think that's where having that link between, say, a brand like Annie's or Cascadian Farm and farmers, for us to tell that story. And when I say us, it's not even me, it's people who have degrees in marketing and communications and who can really get that story out to consumers. So that is one of the things that I'm excited about, that General Mills and our organic brands are thinking about as well, is in the past we had farmers on the back of the box, but moving forward, really going more into, say, social media, our website, to tell the story of the farmers who are behind the products, and kind of opening it up a little bit as well, going back to that theme that I mentioned earlier of telling the story of organic. Really focusing on that organic farmers have something in common, that it's not like this organic farmer who does what organic is. Again, like, get that message to consumers. It is federally regulated. If it says organic, it means that you can trust that it is all of these things that they and so it's that fine line between, yes, every farm is different and every farmer is different, and at the same time, if you're a consumer, these are the things that you can trust are true if it says it's organic. And so that is one of the things that we're excited about, and telling that story, and really visiting organic farms. That's one of the things for our upcoming social media campaigns that we want to be very sure are part of our messaging, is making sure that we link it all the way back to the farm and organic farmers.
Absolutely. I think that the more brand managers who have boots on the ground and can actually see this stuff, I'm really excited for that opportunity. So get on out to Montana soon.
Yes.
We've got stuff to show you, as well as across the country. Kristen had a good question, and is there any landing page for General Mills describing how they're doing this work, working with farmers, sourcing from farmers, interacting with agri professionals? Any place that she's with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, and just to share the good work that's being done out there?
Yes, not yet, but it's coming.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of this is in the works, and we're not there yet in terms of having that public facing information out there, but yes, it's coming. So maybe in a later Oats call, when we have the link, you can share it.
We will have a 2.0 version of this conversation, so I am stoked.
Right.
As we look to the folks on this call, a lot of agronomists, a lot of farmers, is there anything you have, as in the sense that we're all pulling in the same direction, trying to grow organic, trying to be as cohesive as we can with our efforts? Anything you have as a question for the group, Charlotte, or anything that you're constantly wondering about that we could provide now with some group thought?
I'm always interested in hearing what the challenges are. And so I think I've already heard some, so thank you for sharing those. But if there's really anything else, and especially, challenges that you want General Mills to be aware of, I'd love to hear. I know it's not always the easy conversation, but I think it's one that is necessary. So, yeah, if anybody has anything that they really want General Mills to know, I'm all ears.
Well, we will share out your contact info, and I'll send that out as a follow-up email And yeah, thank you. I think as a farmer, I really appreciate that open ear, because there is so much good work to be done collectively between brands, everyone in the supply chain, all the way down to farmers. So really appreciate that willingness to chat.
And I also want to
Oh,
say thank all of you for everything you do. I know really this is, I really personally love organic and the organic community, and I know we're all part of it, working towards this common goal. And everybody I know on this call, you're here because you do this important work. So just want to say thank you to all of
thank
you.
you. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We're just coming up to time here. We are really grateful for everyone taking the time to join us for these conversations. We are going to keep the party going, and we're going to have another call in April. So please watch out for all the details on that from Oats. Charlotte, thank you again so much for your time and for taking on a webinar call right after Expo. I can only imagine how tired you are. I know I'm tired because it is it's a thrilling space we work in, and a lot of good people doing good work. So excited to get more folks together to talk about these conversations. So thank you again.
Great, thank you.
All right, folks. And with that, we have one last announcement, and that is we have the Organic Advisor Hybrid course. We have a March 20th sign-up deadline for our next round of participants in our field course. And so please check the Oats website for that. And we'll be excited to have new agronomists, new folks who are interested in becoming advisors to organic farmers in that cohort. And with that, we will catch you all next month. All right, everyone. Be well for now and take good care. See ya.